Hello, everybody. It is John Pollock alongside Jimmy Korderas, and we are heading into Survivor Series weekend in Toronto. Emphasis on weekend because it is not just Survivor Series. We have the entire WWE and wrestling world taking over Toronto. Jimmy, are you ready for this weekend? I am overwhelmed by all the things coming up between now and Monday.
I have no idea how to prepare for all this. There's a lot going on.
What's on your to-do list? What is Jimmy Korderas going to be checking out?
Well, I'm going to start off, as of this podcast, Friday night at Comedy Bar.
Yes.
10
p.m. Survivor Strikes.
Survivor Strikes, hosted by Jason Agnew of The Law. Should be a lot of fun.
Don't know who's going to drop by.
You never know. There's going to be a lot of people in town, so maybe there'll be some surprises. So I'm going to take that in on Friday night. Saturday is NXT, which I definitely want to go to. Just remembering the atmosphere in Dallas.
Yep.
For NXT TakeOver Dallas, I can imagine Toronto's always been a hot crowd. I'm pretty sure it will be on Saturday night, so I'll be taking that in. Plus a little bit of an after party afterwards at Real Sports, where Christian and The Miz will be at. So I'll be popping in there to say hello and probably get blasted by The Miz. Too bad Jericho's not there. He's there the next day. Maybe I can get put on.
It's the only way Jimmy gets blasted at an after party. It's verbally.
Yeah, exactly. Because I'm usually the designated driver. So the next day, Sunday's a full day. Sunday's crazy. Sunday's crazy. You got the Talk is Jericho thing. I don't know if I'll get put on a list there, but then you got you're hosting the JR.
Correct. I will be there.
Yeah. So
I'll be the guy with the microphone.
You'll be the guy with the microphone. It's usually an evening with JR, but this is going to be an afternoon with JR.
Yeah.
At Second City.
Yeah. They strategically timed it so you'll have plenty of time before Survivor Series. So I believe the VIP meet and greet is at noon, and then the actual show is at 2:30, and you'll be out of there by 4 if you're looking to make your way over to Air Canada Centre, very close by.
So you can take in the 2-hour pre-show and then the 4-hour pay-per-view.
Is that how long the pre-show is?
Apparently, that's what somebody told me. I haven't checked it out personally myself, but somebody said, the pre-show's 2 hours. I said, but the pay-per-view's 4 hours. You don't need.
Oh my gosh, I haven't even looked at what the pre-show is and all of this.
They should put the 10-team tag match.
I don't think logistically I can even catch all of the Survivor Series because I've got to get from there out to TSN because I'm not going to be at Survivor Series Sunday night. That's the one show I am missing to watch, and then go on the air right afterwards with Jason Agnew, and then Monday I'm going to Raw. So. As of right now, tickets are still out for NXT and Raw, so you can still get tickets for that. Survivor Series sounds like it's packed.
Yeah, there's signs everywhere, even to the talent. No comps.
No comps.
No comps.
There you go. Straight out of comp tickets. As we look ahead, quickly, we're not going to go through everything on the TakeOver show, but is there anything in particular that stands out for you on the Saturday night card? It's a great lineup that they have thus far.
It is a fantastic lineup, but for me, because I guess it's that hometown thing, I'm really looking forward to the Bobby Roode, Ty Dillinger thing. I've always been a huge fan of Bobby Roode. I know in TNA he was the it factor, but that certainly applies for him, in my opinion. I think he's got every tool. He's got a good look.
Might get the biggest response of the night.
Exactly.
And that entrance.
And Ty Dillinger, I think, is another guy who has it. He just needs that one connection with the audience, and I think this might be a launching pad for him, depending on how many people actually take in NXT TakeOver on the network, as far as casual fans go, because both of those guys have characters, personas, gimmicks, if you want to call it, that I think can translate on the main roster very well, especially Bobby Roode's with that glorious gimmick. It's like a throwback to the old school, and I think the crowd will be really, really into that match more than any, I think.
Yeah, I really am looking forward to that 2 out of 3 falls match with the Revival against Ciampa and Gargano. I think they'll get lots of time. That should be an excellent match, and I hope it's paced really well because sometimes you get with those 2 out of 3 falls, it's like the first 2, they just blast through, and then you get the lengthy third fall. But, I mean, they have a lot of padding on the network where it's like if they want to go over, they can go over. It's not a hard time. You got to get out because there's a lot packed into what is usually a 2.5 hour window. And, Nakamura and Joe, that should be... they are doing the cage match in a couple of weeks, but this feels like you're kind of wrapping up this feud at this point. And Joe's long-term in NXT, who knows at this point? He seems main roster bound at some point.
He has to be, and I'm surprised he isn't yet. And getting back to the tag match really quick, I think the last time those two met in the tag match at Brooklyn, it epitomized what NXT is, and it's like a blend of old school meets new school. If I could explain it properly, it's kind of like taking old school values but incorporating it and evolving it into the new style without going full-blown indie, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. So now moving over to Survivor Series, we've got on top Brock Lesnar and Bill Goldberg. This to me has carried the promotion for Survivor Series. I don't think you could have handled Bill Goldberg's return much better than what they did. I thought the return was excellent in Denver. And since that, I mean, we had the segment with Paul Heyman, which was fine with the spear, and Rusev getting involved. And then I thought a tremendous final segment between the two with the face-to-face this week and the security wall, throwing them out of the way, and really leaving that segment with, you want to see this match. It felt like a big dream match. They have done it once before, but that was 12 years ago. I just think they've built this up so well, and now we've got the match on Sunday.
Yeah, and I think we're going to get a little bit. I mean, everybody still remembers that match from 12 years ago. So the bar has not been is kind of low to begin with, and I think we're going to see a different Bill Goldberg here because he seems to be more motivated and more in tune with putting on a better performance. That's for sure. And I think a lot of it has to do with his son. I think he wants to show to his son what he is capable of doing and what the Bill Goldberg character is all about. And that being said, also, Brock Lesnar is a different character than he was back then. I mean, like he in WrestleMania 20, for lack of a better term, he was kind of checked out.
Mm-hmm. They both were.
Yeah.
That was their last night, and it was an audience that knew that and turned on the match. I mean, the match wasn't much to begin with,
right.
And it just turned into this debacle at WrestleMania that year. And I think it's totally different circumstances now. And I think this crowd, I think they're going to give this every chance to succeed. Mm-hmm. But these are two guys that are going to have a really physical match to get this across. And I feel this should top out at 14, 15 minutes. And they're going to have to be following what could be a 45-minute elimination match. I mean, they have a lot to follow on a 4-hour show. And I don't think there's any other position but the main event slot for these two to go on.
Right. And I see it being more of a fight and maybe having a lot more MMA-inspired spots, so to speak, because, obviously with we know about Brock's MMA background, but also Bill Goldberg training in Muay Thai and kickboxing and all sorts of disciplines. My only concern is there's a little bit of a difference. I mean, he's in fantastic shape, and we saw that on Monday.
Yeah, he
night.
looked incredible on Monday.
He looked really good, but there's a difference. You can be in the best cardio shape in the world, but there's a difference between that and being in ring shape, and the only way to be in ring shape is to be actually in the ring. The easiest way to describe it is you can be a guy who can run. You can do CrossFit. You can be on the treadmill or the elliptical, like all day long and not get winded. But when you're doing all that training, you're not taking flat back bunks where all the air is leaving your body, and then you have to kind of suck it back in. It's a different thing.
Yeah, there's so many X factors. Just the adrenaline. You're going to have a sold out arena, and those guys. I mean, we see Brock when he gets out there, and just some of the craziness he does, nearly killing himself on some spots. Yeah. I think it's going to be a very physical match. Bill is 49 years old, so we look at this, Jimmy. It's like the promotion to me was one obstacle, and they passed with flying colors on that side. Now it's the match, which presents its own obstacles, and the crowd's going to be a big part of that. If they sense this match falling apart, I don't know if this crowd just defaults to WrestleMania. Right. I don't feel it's going to be a negative reaction for either guy coming out. I think they're going to treat this like this is a fantasy match. It's been built up super tremendously well for both guys. But that crowd's going to be as interesting as the match itself.
Yeah, again, it's a question mark. I know they're building up here in Canada, Brock Lesnar, Canada's own Brock Lesnar. I don't know. I don't think that's going to play too much into it. Bill Goldberg's still going to get that nostalgia pop because people still remember the old stars and they love seeing him coming back. I mean, look at The Undertaker on Tuesday night. Him and Edge getting probably the biggest pops of the week on WWE television. They love their nostalgia.
Do you expect an Undertaker appearance?
I don't know if we're going to see Undertaker, but we'll get to that a little later. Because
all right.
I have a little. I think a seed was planted on Tuesday. Definitely. That's
certainly.
Sure. Yeah.
In terms of the match, I mean, this was always presented as Bill was he had signed for one match. It was one and done. You can always adjust that. The reactions have been tremendous for him. I don't see how you look at this and say, well, we're done with Bill Goldberg as of Monday morning, November 21st. To me, this is the biggest babyface on the current roster at the moment in Bill Goldberg. I can't imagine there is more business to be done with this guy. At the very least, the Hall of Fame next year. I think there's more matches for him too. But what is your thinking? Because to continue with Goldberg, that at least opens up the debate of whether he wins or not on Sunday. Because when this started, it was pretty open and shut. Brock wins, and maybe it's still that way.
I think it is. In my opinion, from a business standpoint, you've invested much, much more into Brock Lesnar. So for him to lose on Sunday to Goldberg, I think it is a huge step backwards for Brock Lesnar, especially considering, and you go all the way back to the ending the streak at WrestleMania, which is, since then, Brock has been unbeatable. So the guy to beat that Brock Lesnar eventually, the guy who ended the streak, the guy who physically dominate Brock Lesnar should be someone on the current roster who can benefit from it and not a past superstar.
Yeah, I think this is more one where if they go out there and they have a good match, I think that's going to more be remembered. And Goldberg, it's like this comeback story, and that you can come back with another match down the road if you so choose. So should be interesting. That's the match I'm most intrigued to see, just how it plays out. It could turn out to surprise a lot of people. I always think of that Fall Brawl match, Bill Goldberg and Scott Steiner in 2000, and you looked on paper like, how is this going to work? And they ended up having this great match, and it was physical. There were suplexes, and it was just like these weird combustible elements that came together, and they ended up having a great match. And it was just, on paper, it looked like, what's going to happen here? You didn't think it was going to produce anything, and it turned out to be well above expectations. So that was also 16 years ago.
Yeah, that's true. But again, sometimes matches that don't look like a beautiful dance.
Sometimes it works.
Sometimes it works.
And you have two gigantic personalities here that audience is going to be into.
Right.
Let's move down into the Survivor Series elimination matches. We have 3 Raw versus SmackDown matches on the line, Jimmy. The Raw team out there to make Mick Foley a happy general manager, as he outlined it. And for SmackDown, staying on the good side of The Undertaker. That is what is at stake in these big matches.
Right, and if it were me, I'd be more inclined to stay on the good side of The Undertaker. That being said, this one is very interesting. I like the fact that finally on Monday night they had both teams being cohesive units finally to show the importance of brand unity and brand superiority, because there was really no stakes involved. Like, it's really,
there's nothing.
Just basically bragging rights, like, haha, we won. But now,
which was literally a pay-per-view they did that tanked when it was just simply brand versus brand for superiority. I think everyone expected and wanted something tangible on the line that you can get to. And, borrowing from Major League Baseball and putting stakes on the All-Star game. It's not just we're not deep enough where Raw and SmackDown means a whole lot at this point.
Right. But at least they place some importance on being brand loyal, to the point where even Bray Wyatt appeared to be loyal to SmackDown. But I feel like in this match, I would like to see him be the catalyst for the SmackDown team imploding. For me, his character wouldn't give a flying you-know-what about brand loyalty. He's the guy who, he wants to be in charge. He's the eater of worlds. Why would he care about brand loyalty? I think in a creative way, Bray Wyatt and Braun Strowman could be eliminated from this match without harming either one of them.
Right.
That's the big question mark with Braun Strowman. Here's a guy who looks like he fits in, who looks like he belongs in this match.
Who's caught on to a degree.
Yeah, because he's starting to show some character development. I mean, you can
hide him in a match like this.
Exactly.
This is not, a big singles match where you're pushing him into a situation where he could fall on his face. I mean, thus far, as they've taken him out of the enhancement matches and into this program, thus far he's doing well and protected, and people are taking to him. So, the Braun project is working thus far, and I don't know if we would have been saying that back in July when they started this push with him.
Right. But I'm feeling that there is a creative way you can get him out of the match without having him.
You can't beat him in this match.
No, absolutely not.
So, there's different ways you can go here, because I've always felt there's a natural to have, much like they did with the Brett and Owen split, where it was the Hart family and the Harts prevail, but the one elimination was Owen, and somehow Team Raw prevails and Owen somehow leads to Jericho's elimination, or vice versa, something like that, where you keep that feud going. I think that's the hottest program they have coming out of this, and how much they want to accelerate that to get to the match. On the SmackDown side, I mean, we know we have AJ Styles and Dean Ambrose at TLC. Let's be honest, this is going to come down to this match. We're going to split the tag, we're going to split the women, and then this match will decide it.
Right.
And I don't think it really matters which team wins. I think it's whatever story you can tell going out of this. And I kind of like the idea of the Raw team winning, but it's either Owens or Jericho that one of them costs the other, and they do not survive.
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning towards the Raw team as well, but I'm almost seeing like that, teasing that feel-good moment of Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins being the sole survivors for Team Raw. Like Jericho and Owens kind of canceling each other out, somehow causing each other to lose. And having them eliminated, and Braun Strowman obviously getting out of the match in a creative way, leaving Seth Rollins and the former Shield members to kind of stand tall and still have that, are they on the same page or are they not kind of thing. And in a perfect world, you'd have Roman Reigns spear Seth Rollins afterwards.
I think the way to go, honestly, is, and they're not really playing this up too much, it's Seth having to convince Roman to trust him again after turning on him 2 years ago, and just this long story, and finally there's that moment where Roman agrees to trust Seth, gets on the same page, and then it's Roman that attacks Seth. He has the motivation to do so from the turn, but that would accelerate the Roman Reigns heel turn that I think you could still go to, and now Seth Rollins is a defined babyface with a guy that is your heel. And that could be your Mania program for those two if Hunter's not in the situation.
Exactly. And then conversely, on the SmackDown side, I see that on Tuesday night, for me, the seed was planted. The Undertaker comes out to take over his yard again, basically out of nowhere. First time we see him since WrestleMania. But there was a guy absent on Tuesday night that we couldn't see, who's basically the face that runs the place. May have issue with the Undertaker coming back to take over his yard. Maybe that's your WrestleMania program.
That's what I read.
Talking about
when they showed that clip with the handshake from 2002. That's exactly what I thought, Jimmy. It was a seed being planted there for Taker and Cena. And you're right, Taker coming back and becoming, the guy that runs SmackDown. That sets up the natural interaction with John Cena when he returns at some point. So many different options there. For the women's match, we've got 5-on-5 once again with Charlotte, with Sasha Banks, with Bayley, Nia Jax, and Alicia Fox. I'm doing this all off the top of my head against
pretty good.
Becky Lynch, Nikki Bella, Alexa Bliss, Naomi, and Carmella.
Carmella, yes.
To me, it's like this in the tag match. It's like we can throw out who we think is winning. To me, it's like one wins, one loses, and I think it's, I don't see much coming out of either of these other than they're going to need a lot of time for these, because 4 hours, it's not like we have a ton of matches, but it's going to be lengthy matches on this card.
No, absolutely. And with the women, I think in this one here, Nia Jax is going to be the project here to make her look like a dominant alpha female in this one. I think this is a perfect opportunity for her to do that. And if you look at the two teams, comparatively speaking, the Raw side looks stacked. Compared to the SmackDown side, but
this is definitely a chance to create a contender if you're going that direction with Nia, where she can run through the SmackDown team, even pin Becky or something, and that's even though like it feels that Bayley is the next program for Charlotte, but how you handle Nia is interesting because they have not gone as hard with her of late as compared to Braun Strowman. She's almost been a back burner until this Survivor Series match began. Right,
and you can almost have that interesting David versus Goliath dynamic where you have Nia Jax versus Alexa Bliss, who's the tiniest on the roster of all the females, I believe. And, you can tell that kind of story. But for me, I think this one here is a feel-good moment for the Raw side again, and the showcase for Nia Jax.
Tag match. I am going to rely on notes for this one. New Day with Gallows and Anderson, Sheamus and Cesaro, Enzo and Cass, and the Shining Stars. Taking on Heath Slater and Rhino, the Hype Bros, American Alpha, the Usos, and Tyler Breeze and Fandango. the Fashion Police. So whichever team wins the women's match, I assume that brand loses this one. This one, again, I think will get quite a lot of time. I think you'll get rid of a lot of your shining stars, your Fandango and Breezes pretty early. And if you get down to the core tag teams, this could turn into a really great match with the Usos, with American Alpha, with New Day in there as well. And Anderson and Gallows too. I think this could be a well put together match, I feel, and American Alpha getting some time on a show, because I just think they're criminally underused on SmackDown. I mean, since their call up, it's hit and miss if they even get on to the show every week. I think they're one team that has not benefited because of the length of a show on SmackDown, where I think on Raw you would see a lot more of them.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned American Alpha, because those are the guys I think that need to be.
Are they going to be booed in Toronto, Jimmy?
I don't know, but that's going to be an interesting. See, again,
not a patriotic
world
duo, but I mean, hey, you're really tempting fate with that reaction,
right? But similar to Nia Jax, I think they're the ones that need to be the breakout team to in this whole. This one also has the potential to be the biggest cluster with 20 guys.
There's you got to get rid of guys
quickly. Yes,
yeah, there's a lot of bodies here.
There's going to be a lot of bodies there, and I was thinking at one point maybe this match could be on the pre-show and just give it a whole bunch of time. But at the same time, it is a 4-hour pay-per-view, so you still have a lot of time. But then again, that doesn't mean anything.
I feel they're going to add, we're doing this on a Thursday. I feel they could add a Cruiserweight elimination match on the kickoff, just because that's a natural. You can throw in a bunch of guys without any programs and do that.
Which is pretty much what they do anyway.
That's the Cruiserweight division, which can take us to Brian Kendrick against Kalisto with the title and the division on the line, Jimmy. Right. If Kalisto wins, he not only wins the title, but the Cruiserweights move to SmackDown, which I'm kind of intrigued by this if they actually go ahead with this, because logistically, with the 205 live show starting, it makes a whole lot more sense for the Cruiserweights to be on Tuesdays, and you're on the road, and not just for this network show. Right. But also, you're talking a 2-hour show. We just mentioned with American Alpha, it's not like they're going to be able to have room for an entire new division on SmackDown. I mean, they are better suited for Raw, but this Cruiserweight division, to me, is just... It is spiraling. It is a car that is just trailed off the highway, and it's about to explode.
It's really weird, because thinking, having the Cruiserweights on Monday nights with that extra hour would be so beneficial to them, but it just hasn't panned out.
It hasn't clicked at all.
At all. And
there's many factors for that.
Yeah, exactly. But moving them to SmackDown, I mean, in theory, it would be maybe a better move for them, a better fit on SmackDown. But like you said, with 1 hour less of programming, what do you give them? You give them
what if half the division just gains weight overnight, and then when the division happens, they're no longer Cruiserweights. They have to stay on Raw.
Oh.
And only 7 guys go to SmackDown.
Yeah, you don't make it, you stay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. But anyways, you move them over to
Jim Miller at the last weigh-in. He had to gain weight to keep his fight with Thiago Alves. So
yeah, lots of water. Lots of water. Drink water.
Does Kendrick keep this title?
That's a tough call. A couple of weeks ago, I would have said absolutely. Now with the new 205 show, like you said, it presents an interesting scenario. Like, if they do move over to SmackDown, do they get that one segment to kind of entice people to the 205 show after SmackDown on the network? I mean, is that the
You
plan?
can at least do some angles on SmackDown, and I think it's easier to do the angles on Tuesday than it is Monday for the 205 live show. And, to be honest, it's like they're going to have to be there Tuesdays anyway. It's not like these guys get these incredibly lengthy segments on Raw now. It's not like they're getting all this time. It's usually reserved for one match. The occasional week you get 2 where it's just a 6-man with guys thrown together. And the only guy I would say that's gotten over thus far is Rich Swann.
Yeah.
I don't think Kendrick has clicked at all. I feel TJ Perkins he's disappeared after that title loss outside of his little meeting this past week in the backstage area.
Right.
So this Cruiserweight division, it needs a hard reset. Maybe moving it to SmackDown is that idea. But if they do that, Jimmy, then I feel the IC title should go to Raw, and the Cruiserweight title becomes the number 2 singles title on SmackDown, because there's way too many titles out there. If they were to merge the US and IC titles, I'd be fine with that. But it's The Miz and Sami Zayn. First of all, were you surprised that Ziggler got bumped out of this match? He doesn't even have a slot on this show as of right now.
Not 100%, because for me, The Miz has done the best work he's done ever right now in this current iteration of The Miz. I mean, even when he was main eventing WrestleMania against John Cena, he was nowhere near the character development and the persona that he is now. He is a complete sports entertainer, WWE superstar right now. So I'm not surprised at all by it. It'd be interesting. For me, if Sami Zayn were to win the Intercontinental Championship on Sunday and move it over to Raw, that would be the route I would like it to see, is where you do merge the U.S. title and the Intercontinental Championship, and maybe talking about Roman Reigns possibly finally doing what everybody wants him to do, is turn heel. Then you have a natural program with him and Sami Zayn and help get Sami Zayn over as a huge babyface. Not that he needs more help, but he could use a little bit.
Yeah, it's at least something for Sami Zayn on Raw, because he's just been floundering since the brand split.
Or if Miz does win the title, retains the title and keeps it on SmackDown through nefarious methods, Sami loses it and goes to management and says, I don't care what you got to do, you trade me to SmackDown, because he's not getting away with that.
Where Miz somehow, screws him to keep the title.
Yeah.
Right. I think, to be honest, like, of the six, those are the two I'm kind of most interested to see what they do with the Cruiserweights and conversely with the IC title, and whether they flip that to another show or not. So
because there's stakes involved.
There are stakes involved. You always need stakes.
Yes.
The sizzle's nice, but you need some steak.
You need some steak.
So that is Survivor Series happening on Sunday night, and then Raw Monday night. You're going to Raw?
It depends on how I
Raw's
feel.
a maybe. You might be burnt out.
Yeah.
You might have a hangover from that after party. A wrestling hangover.
A wrestling hangover. Yeah. When you get older, John.
I'm getting there, Jimmy.
Yeah.
I'm getting there. I'm probably going to be exhausted by Sunday. So that is happening all this weekend. You can follow along, liveaudiowrestling.com. We will be live midnight Eastern Sunday night on TSN 1050 Toronto, 1410 in Vancouver. Myself and Jason Agnew running through Survivor Series. We'll hear from Dan Lavransky, who is taking in everything this weekend live as well. And
Dan.
We will chat with you next week if the two of us are still standing.